أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The past 2 nights we were talking about prophethood, nubuwah, or specifically how is it that we can get information from Allah, from God, and know that it's actually from Him. We said that it's incumbent and wajib and obligatory upon Allah to protect His information, to protect His message, to protect the hidayat that He's promised to give us. If He weren't to protect it, if He could not protect it, and if He didn't protect it, then He wouldn't be wise, He wouldn't be just. So it's rational for us to expect Him to protect that message. There's 2 ways that Allah has protected His message and given us a way to determine who is actually sent from God and who is a false prophet. The first that we had discussed over the past 2 nights was a mu'jiza, a miracle. This mu'jiza, this miracle, was a specific code, a specific power that not everybody gets. Only someone directly connected to Allah has these certain abilities. There's something else that we're going to talk about tonight, and this is the quality of isma, what they say infallibility. Infallibility, isma, is that second quality that somebody must possess. It's a rational thing for us to understand, to know that some person has been sent from Allah, has been sent by God. So a few questions we're going to answer tonight. First, what exactly is isma? Infallibility is a definition we hear, a translation, but what does that mean? How does Allah use that word isma in the Quran so we can get a better understanding of what He means by isma? Then we'll see, once we understand that, what definition applies to those who come from Allah? And is there a type of isma that you and I can try to get as well? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what is isma? Isma, or what is a ma'soom, right? These words. In English you say infallible. Now what does that mean exactly, right? Sometimes the English translations that we hear for certain words doesn't really help us understand the concept, right? For those who have been attending the Jummah khutbahs, we opened up the discussion on taqwa. Taqwa you call God consciousness, but what does that mean? That has to be opened up and discussed. Isma is also something like that. When you say infallibility, well, what do you mean infallible? So first, like we did yesterday when we were talking about qara'a, or the Quran, let's look at how the Arabic explains itself. Isma or asima, when it's used as a verb, means to abstain, to protect, to restrain, to prevent, to safeguard, and to defend. Okay, so this now makes a bit more sense for us. Now, in this verbal form, or in other forms, how does Allah Himself use it in the Quran? Because obviously, if we're trying to figure out who is a ma'soom, or what is isma, and we're trying to understand the relationship, how does Allah protect somebody? How does He make them a ma'soom? We need to know, okay, Allah, you tell us how you use that word. Because we don't want to offer our own interpretation of what that word means. So we'll focus on 2 places. The first is Surah Hud. Thank you. The first is Surah Hud, chapter 11, verse 43. So what's the background of this verse? This is about the story of Nabi Noah alayhi salam. So as we know, this was after the flood had began. The flood had started, the ark was ready. And we know that Nabi Nuh and his family, there were some children who believed in his message, some who were righteous, and one of his children at the very least was someone who didn't believe in his father's message. He didn't follow Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. So the first ayat is about this son who turned away from Allah, who turned away from Nuh, and his response when the flood was coming. So he says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قَالَ سَاوِي إِلَى الجبل. So he's basically telling his father, when his father is trying to convince him, come onto the ark, he's saying, Sawi ila jabal, I'm going to go and seek refuge on that mountain. Right? So he doesn't believe that this ark that Nabi Nuh has been spending his whole life building, he doesn't believe that ark's going to save him. So he says, no, I'm going to go hide on that mountain all the way up there. The flood won't reach there. قَالَ سَاوِي إِلَى جَبَلٍ. I'm going to go seek refuge on top of that mountain. Then he says, يَعْسِمُنِي مِنَ الْمَاءِ. Isma, right? It will do ismat. I will become ma'soom from that water. I'll be protected from water. Right? Ya'simuni. It's coming from the isma. Then Nabi Nuh responds to him. He says, قال لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحمه. Nabi Nuh responds to him. He says, there's no asim. There's no protector today from the command of Allah except whoever Allah has mercy on. And of course we know he goes to the mountain and then unfortunately he is drowned. So this word isma is used in two forms in this verse. The first is when the son of Nabi Nuh says that I am expecting to become ma'soom by going on top of this mountain. I'm expecting to be protected from the flood, the water of the flood, by going on top of the mountain and seeking refuge. Nabi Nuh also responds and uses the same word ism, right, in its active form, asim. So there's no person who will protect you, who will make you ma'soom on this day, except for whoever can have mercy on you, meaning Allah. So this is one verse. The next is the famous one that us as Shia basically have memorized, yeah? And this is Surah Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 67, where we say this is related to Ghadir, right? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhar rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayk min rabbik. O Prophet, do tabligh, give out the message that has been sent to you from your Rabb. وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَاتَهُ. And if you don't do that, if you don't give out this message, it's like you haven't done any tabligh at all. Your risala is useless. And then, now here's the key part of the verse. وَاللَّهُ يَعْصِمُكَ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Allah will do isma. Allah will make you ma'soom from the people. So, based on the usage of these two verses we mentioned in Surah Hud and this in Surah Ma'idah, when somebody receives something, there's two options you have. If, for example, somebody gives you a gift, right, something you don't ask for, it's something you didn't earn, it's just out of the kindness of that person's heart, out of no effort or struggle or niyat or nothing from yourself, somebody gives you a gift, okay, that's one style of transaction. It's a one-way transaction, yeah? But there's another one, another type of transaction, which is two-way, meaning in order for you to receive the item, you have to give something in return. Right? A two-way transaction, which what we're normally used to. A gift you don't earn, you technically just get out of somebody's love, compassion, and kindness. Other transactions, you either have to offer something in exchange, like money, or some other item if you're going to trade it off. Right? Isma, based on what we said from these two verses, is the result of a transaction, not something that Allah just randomly is giving to individuals. Na'udhu billah. What happens? Nabi Nuh's son says that I'll become ma'soom after I go on top of the mountain. His part of the transaction is I can earn isma if I go on top. So he has to do some work. The Prophet, well, in the conversation with Allah here, when Allah's saying, you won't be ma'soom unless you send down the message. I'll protect you, but you have to do your job. So in both of these ayat, both of these verses, what we understand is in order to become ma'soom, you have to offer something up first. Isma is not just given haphazardly, randomly, out of nowhere. So in order for us, or anyone, any prophet, any imam, any of us to receive that divine protection, that divine isma, to become ma'soom, we have to put in some effort first. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this part, the rational part of it, and this Quranic proof that we've offered, should answer those who say, why is it that the prophets and imams became ma'soom when Allah could have made me ma'soom too? They didn't do anything. I'm trying, but Allah didn't make me ma'soom. That's why I sinned. If Allah had made me ma'soom from the beginning, if He had protected me, then of course I wouldn't have sinned. But it's not about being robotic. It's not Allah just programming somebody saying, okay, don't sin. No, they have the ability. Because they've earned it through their struggles, that's how Allah has given them that power of isma. Another question comes up in this discussion of isma. what exactly are they protected against? What are you ma'soom from? What should these prophets be protected against? And you know, we have a difference of opinion between the different Islamic schools of thought. Now, this series that we have here is not, we're not interested in going between difference of opinions between different Muslim schools of thought. We're not interested, that's not our purpose. But just one point that we can rationally, because that's what we've been doing, right? We've been trying to think about these things in a rational manner. A rational point that we can mention, just so we understand, is this. We had said before, Allah, in His qualities, His essence, demanded that He's going to be just, He's going to be merciful, and that He's going to guide us, right? Okay. We expected, and we actually proved that He has to send somebody down with certain qualities. These qualities are going to be the criteria, the barometer, and what will distinguish between a regular person and somebody divinely sent from God. Okay? Now, if Allah is going to give us this spiritual program, if He's going to ask us to do salah, if He's going to ask us to fast, if He's going to ask us not to curse, if He's going to ask us to be kind to our spouses, if He's going to ask us to raise our children a certain way, then, okay, Allah, you can't simply give us instructions, you need to show us a living example. And that living example, you have two choices, Allah. If you send down somebody that can make mistakes, then you're saying that we can also make mistakes and that you can't hold us accountable. But if He sends down somebody who's perfect, somebody who makes no mistakes in anything, then Allah is saying for us, this is the standard you can reach if you put your effort in. You can become ma'soom if you actually put that effort in. So what we say in our school of thought is that if any of the prophets, or even the imams for that matter, if they were able to make mistakes in anything, in deen or dunya, in religious matters or regular matters, then we wouldn't be held accountable in front of Allah. When we see very clearly in the Quran that Allah says for every single little thing you're going to be held accountable. So, if we know that we will be held accountable, then that means the person that Allah will send down to us as a prophet, as an imam, they also have to be the type that are completely protected against everything. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As far as Quranic evidence for that, there's a lot of it. I'll mention just a few verses in Surah Najm to strengthen our point, and then we can move on to the next question. In Surah Najm, chapter 53, verses 2 through 4. You know, this is in regards to this issue that, okay, so we found this prophet, he's making these claims. Let's just say that I believe in him to some degree, but maybe he'll make a mistake in the way he's going to explain the religion to us. So maybe it's not his fault. We just said something incorrectly by accident, right? So Allah wants to set a principle for us in this verse. He says regarding the Prophet, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. Right? Your sahib is talking about the Prophet. مَا ضَلَّ. He won't be misguided. وَمَا غَوَى. He won't just make up random things and be turned away. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. He won't say anything from his own intellect. He won't be giving his own opinion. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. Every single thing that he does is going to be wahi. It's going to be revelation. Remember the point we were after, if you remember from the previous 2 nights, we said we realize our intellects can't understand everything. Science cannot teach us morality. It's beyond the scope of science to say what is right and what is wrong. So we rationally realized we need somebody directly connected to God to give us, to use a different method. Revelation, wahi. So Allah is saying, the one I'm going to send down won't make any mistakes, won't be misguided, won't give any opinions of himself. Every single thing that he says to us will be wahi. Everything will be wahi in revelation. So this is the first issue that we handled. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay. We went through this quality, the definition of isma in the Quran. We talked about how the Prophet must have this quality. Now, question is, okay, to be protected against all of these different things, sure, we know that the prophets and imams from our own history books, they didn't commit any errors. But something still, is confusing for many of us. Okay, I know that the prophets and imams, they're supposed to be our role models, they're supposed to be our examples, but still, we kind of feel like in our daily lives that there's some gap between us, right? Well, where are they? Where are we? Right? We heard this in Farsi a lot. People are like, those are the ma'asumeen. Who are we? I'm living my life. I'm going to make mistakes. They're on a different level, etc., etc. So the question is, can we become ma'asum? And I say that's not the right question. I say the right question is, what things can we become ma'asum in? So what does that mean? Most of us are already ma'asum. We're just not ma'asum completely, right? Not mutlaq yet. Okay. So let me prove it to you and give you an example. Raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. It's a rhetorical question, but if you've ever had the thought in your mind that you were going to shoot up heroin and then go murder everybody in the center, then raise your hand. Okay, nobody's going to raise your hand, obviously. Okay, that's good. Why? Why has that thought never occurred to you? Why have you never sat there and contemplated, well, I'm going to sit there and shoot up heroin, take meth, go on a shooting spree, etc., etc. Nobody's ever contemplated that over here, right? What does that mean? That means you're ma'asum from that issue. Shaitan won't bother whispering to you and doing waswasa to you because he knows it's a waste of time. Think of anything in your life that you yourself know that you'll never commit. Right? Again, there's extreme examples. Murder is one. Taking drugs might be something for you, although other people might struggle from that. So for many of us, it's about praying on time. We know that, listen, I will never, ever, ever leave my salah. I will ever, ever delay my namaz. Never. So you're ma'asum. Shaitan won't bother coming to you in the morning while you're trying to wake up and say, oh, why don't you just sleep a little bit more? If you're ma'asum, if you've been protected against that, if you've been given that divine gift from Allah, then shaitan knows that this is a place that I have no jurisdiction because this person's perfected their soul. Shaitan can only mess with our nafs, our identity, if we have a weak identity. Do you remember the initial verse that we used in this discussion? وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهِ. Don't be like those who forgot about Allah. فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. Because Allah then makes them forget their real identity. Their nafs gets weakened. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. These people, the ones who have forgotten about Allah, who have forgotten their identity, these are the ones who end up becoming fasiqeen, fasiqoon, open sinners. Why? As you start forgetting your identity, as you become weaker and weaker, as your connection with Allah, with Islam becomes weaker and weaker, then you're making more room for shaitan. That's more room now for you to be swayed from right to left. For those of us who have issues in the morning, you're trying to wake up, your alarm goes off, then shaitan can come and mess with you and say, you know what, you still have about an hour till sunrise, you can take another 15-minute nap, it's no problem. But what happens? You try to go back to sleep, you fall asleep, and then you wake up 3 hours later, right? It never happens that you wake up just on time, very rarely. Shaitan knows exactly how we like things. He knows that we like our sleep. He knows that we like our food. He knows that we like to do ghiba. He knows what our soul's like. Sometimes he knows it better than we do. But he also knows when he's going to waste his time. He won't want to waste his time. So he won't come to us, for example, followers of Ahlul Bayt, and bother saying, if somebody in the community has a difference of opinion, you should chop their head off. Because he knows for a follower of Ahlul Bayt, we've been taught much better than that. Our akhlaq and our ideology is far beyond inhuman acts like some people in the name of Islam are committing. He won't waste our time with that. Now, if somebody bumps into you in line as you're trying to get your food, shaitan might start messing with you there and saying, this auntie, this uncle, this brother, this sister, they did it intentionally, right? And start making fights in between us. Yeah, but that's our own weakness that we have to work on. So we have isma in many different regards, but we don't have it in everything, and that's what we have to try to work on. We have examples in history of many different personalities who were not the quote-unquote 14 ma'asumeen, but we're still protected and we don't have evidence, nor do we see them committing any sins. Look at the shuhada of Karbala. We don't see them committing anything. Right? Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, for example. We don't see any issues, physical, spiritual. We don't see him committing sins. We don't see him making mistakes in his worldly issues. Zainab alayhi salam. Sayyida Ma'asuma alayhi salam in Qum. She is named Ma'asuma by her brother, Imam Rida alayhi salam, for a reason. Because she's been protected because of what she's done. We have many ulama in the past that from young ages, from the age, according to some of our historians, from 4, 5, 6 years old, because of the way that their parents have raised them, because of their intellectual development, their spiritual development, because of their environment, They have never committed one sin in their whole life. And some of them even stay away from the makruhat and only perform the mustahabbat in addition to the wajibat. It's possible. But it takes a lot of effort for us, for ourselves, to work on these things and then to impart this into our children. So what is the key? How do we start developing that sense of isma in ourselves? So I'll share one hadith, or at least a part of a hadith from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. He says in one narration that's attributed to him, مَنْ اعْتَصَمَ بِاللَّهِ بِالتَّقْوَى عَصَّمَهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever clings on or seeks this isma with Allah, this protection, using what? بِالتَّقْوَى. Connecting themselves back to Allah. Then عَصَّمَهُ اللَّهُ. Then Allah will provide His protection for them. You have to have taqwa of Allah. Now what is that? Since I mentioned it for 2 Jummah khutbahs, I can't explain it, right, or fully go into it, but just maybe 1 or 2 lines inshallah. This kind of deep ma'rifat is what's necessary. It's where you have this, they call it God consciousness, godly awareness, divine awareness. Let me give some examples first. Let's say you're going to buy a car, right? You want to go buy a brand new car. What are the things that are going on in your mind when you're deciding which car you should pick? Right? You go from dealership to dealership, looking at different cars. You take them for a test drive. What are the questions you have in your mind? What's driving your decision-making process? For some, it's, okay, price, I have a budget. It's my family, meaning it has to have a certain number of seats. It has to be this big. Maybe safety is a concern. If I'm going to take my newborn child, it should have this kind of material, or it should have this 5-point safety guarantee. Maybe you want a sort of, 3-year, 5-year warranty, or however many hundreds of thousands of miles. You want that kind of warranty. Do you want a specific kind of engine? This is typically the considerations we have, right? How many of us, honestly, think for yourself, answer yourself honestly. When you're going to buy a car, or a house, whatever, which one of us is sitting there thinking, okay, which one of these would Allah be pleased with? Which one of these will get me closer to Allah? It sounds ridiculous. What do you mean a car gets you closer to Allah? Well, think about it. Many of us may have leather seats in our car. And we know leather, things which are, leather which comes from a non-Islamically slaughtered animal, there are specific rules and ahkam related to that, which I don't want to mention here because there's different rules depending on your marja, which you can all refer to. I'm merely making the point of taqwa. Has anybody stopped and considered, okay, should I get these leather seats in the car or not? If it rains, like it just did, and then I go sit with my wet clothing in my car, am I okay with that? Is there going to be an issue when I go offer salah? Am I okay with doing something like this? Or if it does, and I may become najis, am I going to set something up as a car, put a towel there or a sheet there to make sure that my clothes don't get najis? Do you have this kind of awareness at all? This is what one version of taqwa is. It's understanding and thinking about all the different variables in terms of what Allah wants from us. At the very least in terms of ahkam, in terms of the rulings. Again, leather seats is one example. Think about going to buy a house, right? As you go and buy a house, we know one of the rules is that the bathroom, a toilet seat, when somebody's using the washroom, the bathroom, the front of their body and the back of their body cannot be facing the qibla. How many of us, when purchasing a house or renting an apartment or using a restroom at a service area or on the airplane, have checked the qibla before using the washroom? Before purchasing that house, saying, okay, let me make sure my washroom's not in the direction of the qibla, either front or back. This has to take a sense of taqwa, meaning I have to see what Allah wants from me. What rules are set up in place for me to make this decision? Yes, the district is important. You want your kids to go to a good school. Fine, yeah, that's there. You want to make sure that the area, is a safe area. Okay, that's fine. You should consider that. But are these things being considered without Allah, or are they being considered in terms of your relationship with Allah? Meaning, I want safety, not because I'm in fear of losing and my family getting hurt, because Allah has put a duty on me to protect my family. That's why I want a safe house. I'm not looking for a good school district, so that my kids can learn well, so that they can go get a job, so that they can get a lot of money, so they can get married. That's dunyawi. But if you say, I want my children to learn well, because Allah is the one who's provided all of these sciences and all these realms of knowledge, and I want them to get connected to Allah, and I want the best of the best. And if they learn the best of the best, then they can move on to a good school, a better school, and then Allah will be guiding them through this, and then they can get, inshallah, a good job, so that they can provide for their family, because it's a duty that Allah has for them. Again, how many of these decisions do we take back to Allah? This is taqwa. It's in every single decision, in every thought process, before you speak, before you think, are you connecting it back to Allah or not? Are you wary? Are you aware? Is your tawajjuh, is your attention towards Allah, or are you ghafil? Are you doing ghafla? Are you just, forget it. It's just about what I want. If you have taqwa, what Imam is saying here, Imam Sadiq, taqwa, and you connect it back to Allah and you're seeking Allah's protection, He'll come and give you that isma, and then inshallah, you would become ma'asum. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The other part of this equation is about ma'rifah, about a deep understanding. Now, over these past few nights, we've been speaking a lot about the intellect, rationality, logic, being reasonable, evidence, things like that. And these are in their own place. But there's going to come a time and a place in everybody's life, and possibly for every single decision, every single thing that we think about, where the intellect is going to reach its peak and then we're done. And we can't go any higher. We can't go any further. Let's think, for example, about the typical example that our ulama and our urafa mention in terms of ma'rifah. Many of us have been near and have interacted with a dead body, right? With a mayyit, in a janazah, for example. We've visited our loved ones in graveyards. Or, for example, if a loved one's passed away and they had to leave the body, let's say, in a room, or had to leave it in a center or a masjid, and you wanted to spend some time with that body by yourself. Now, think rationally. Rationally, you know that this person's passed away. This is just a body. The soul, is going somewhere else. This body is not just going to randomly get up and do anything to me. But how many of us, with all of that rational understanding, are still willing to spend a night at a cemetery? Or still willing to spend time by themselves, with nobody else around, in a room with a dead body? Most of us would be like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Why don't you just play some Quran on a tape for them? I'm going to go home. It's a scary notion to us. Spending your time by yourself in the middle of the night at a graveyard or with a body. It freaks us out. It's freaking me out right now, right? Rationally, I know that there's no zombies in Islam. There's no such thing as that, right? Nobody's going to pop out. There's no such thing as the zombie apocalypse. There's no raja of zombies. Although raja is another discussion. Some people might call that a zombie apocalypse, but maybe inshallah another series we'll talk about that. But we don't expect people just to pop out of the grave and just come and scare us like that. But at the same time, we're still not ready to spend time there. Why? Because our intellect understands it one way, but our hearts don't understand that interaction. Our hearts don't fully connect with that rational understanding. Many people, when they think about azadari, right, about this azab, about these speeches, these majalis, in terms of how we've been evolving over time. We started with this sort of sinazani, this chest beating, this latam, this matam, poetry, crying, reciting musiba and masa'ib and gham, and all of these different types of things. And many people, not just in this country, but in a lot of different countries, even in Islamic countries, Muslims, like in Iran, I've heard this from some individuals. Why are we repeating the same story over and over again every year? Why are we reciting poetry? Why are we bothering hitting our chests? This is backward stuff. We need to become more intellectual. We need to sit down and we should have a seminar. The person should go to the podium and share Islamic information. It should be a class, a workshop, a seminar, and then we can go home. We don't need this, old, barbaric, Jahil Arab stuff. That's the way some of them describe it. They needed it back then. The Eastern mentality needs it, but we, as advanced Westerners, we don't need this anymore. This individual has made a mistake on two fronts. One is they've completely denied what the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have shown us. If this azah wasn't tied to an emotional aspect, then the Ma'asumeen alayhimus salam would have been the first to mention it. But we see in every single time, in every single zaman, in almost every single life of every single imam, they had been encouraging poetry. They had been encouraging grief. They had been encouraging crying and sadness, wearing black, all of these things, holding majalis, giving out tabarruk. This is something they mentioned, and in terms of usul, it's called itlaq. There is no conditions. There is no, well, if you become more intellectual, then you don't have to do it. They don't say anything like that. It's what we see very clearly. The imams are calling poets to come and recite for them. They would get off the minbar themselves so that people could recite. And we have many famous poets throughout history that the imams would praise and give gifts to for what they did for the Ahlul Bayt. So that's one side. One side is this kind of thinking is devoid from our Islamic teachings. The second is this person who's claiming to bring in intellectual science hasn't looked at the psychological research and evidence. In modern psychology, they have looked at and discussed and shown and proven that when somebody makes a decision based on negative emotional catharsis, a negative emotional reaction, they develop a stronger connection than a positive emotional response. What does that mean? Let's give two scenarios. Let's say a person that is loved by you, a beloved person in your life, a mother, a father, a grandparent, a spouse, a child. It's their birthday, right? And they say to you, my birthday wish is that you become a doctor, for example. I'm not encouraging everybody to become doctors. I know that's one of our issues in our culture, that everybody has to be a doctor. I'm not encouraging that. It's an example. They say, on their birthday, you know what, I hope you become a doctor. My birthday wish is that you become a doctor. Okay. How much effect will that really have? Like, okay, Dad, okay, Mom, that's nice. Okay, sure. Now, look at the other way. Your mother, your father, your grandparent, your child, your brother, your sister, your cousin, that person you have a deep, strong connection with, on their deathbed, they say to you, my last dying wish is that you become a doctor. Now, which of these two is actually going to have an effect in our lives? Obviously, we'd all say the second one. That emotional connection to sadness is there, and it's described in modern psychological literature. And those who are interested, they can go look it up themselves and find it. And I'm sure those who are in psychology and have done the research can show that as well. In psychology, they show the relationship between reward and punishment, between the different parts of the brain. I don't want to go and make this a discussion on psychology, right? Of course, I'm not an expert as well. It's just the few articles that I've read. So again, a person who's trying to say you can divorce the emotional from the intellectual has missed two things. One is they've misinterpreted and misunderstood and taken away the words of Ahlul Bayt, and they're not even paying attention to the words of empiricists and psychologists. So this key, again, we're saying to isma is one, understanding that you have to offer up something to Allah. You have to improve yourself. You have to try to clean your nafs and have that taqwa, be aware of your decision-making process, and develop that ma'rifah and try to make that emotional attachment as well, and not just look for some intellectual, rational argument. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So up until now, we've gone through Tawheed, we've gone through Adl, and we've gone through Nubuwah. We've proven the existence of God. We've proven His quality of justice. We've proven that we need somebody to be sent down from God, what the qualities of these individuals will be, these prophets, this revelation they'll give us, and how that quality makes a difference in our life of being ma'soom, this isma, this protection. Now there's only two qualities left of our usul ad-din, two things left that we need to prove. Now, of course, we only have one more night left. So the next one, normally that we as followers of Ahlul Bayt discussed after Nubuwah is imama, right? Or in a more general form, sometimes we talk about it as wilaya. The other after that is ma'ad, or the hereafter. Now, because most of us as followers of Ahlul Bayt have been through these discussions, many speakers have come and talked to us about Saqifa and Ghadir and all these things. Personally, I'm not a person who's interested in polemics. I think there's a lot of literature out there. The answers are very, very obvious. Now, if somebody has specific questions, then maybe later on at some other point we can answer it, and I can point you to scholars and ulama who specialize in these kind of things. But I think the proof, Ghadir, it's very obvious what has happened in history and the rational need for continuing guidance on this earth. Ma'ad, however, is something that many of us still have kind of a doubt of. Okay, even if we believe in God, even if we believe in these prophets being sent down, is there any sort of rational proof or even a point or an ishara or an indication that there could be another life out there? This is another issue that atheists bring up. They said, even if you want to prove a God, you can't prove to me that after I die that I'm going to go on to another life. How do I know that I won't go on unto non-existence? It'll just be nothingness afterwards. So because of that, I'll skip the discussion on imama and wilaya, And tomorrow we'll end on the discussion of Ma'ad and see, is there any way, somehow we can try to give some sort of evidence and show that rationally, logically, scientifically, empirically, there may be some indication that there is another life, there is some sort of continuation. That'll be how we conclude our discussion tomorrow night, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. On the 7th of Muharram, according to our historians, they say this is when the water had run out in the camps of Abu Abdullah, in the tents of the Ahlul Bayt. This is when the cries of Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash began on that 7th of Muharram. On the 8th of Muharram, the cries continued, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. On the 9th, the children were still crying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. On the morning of Ashura, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. All the way up until the Asr of Ashura, they kept crying and crying, begging for water. According to some of our narrations, they say that when this Layl, when this Sham-e Ghariban began, when the sun had set on this night, on the 11th night, they say that we have no riwayah, we have no indication that any child was saying Al-Atash anymore. No, why is it? Why is it that the children had stopped crying for water? What happened there? Was it because they were shocked to see what had happened to the bodies of their fathers and their brothers? Was it because of what had transpired afterwards? Because of the way they were attacked and viciously violated by the Mal'oon from the army of Umar ibn Sa'd? Was it because for the first time they had seen their mothers being violated and abused by men? Or according to some, they say it's because the hopes and dreams of those children was Ammu Abbas, and when Ammu Abbas didn't come back, the children said they had no hope left. And from that point on, they stopped crying. They stopped saying, Aina, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. They stopped crying for water. And they said, just bring back our Ammu Abbas, just bring back Hussein. Ajrukum ala Allah. After Shimr had severed the head of our beloved Imam, Umar ibn Sa'd began giving his final orders to harass the family of Rasulullah. These Yazidi forces came and surrounded the body of Hussein. Umar ibn Sa'd gives his first order. He said, attack the body of Hussein, this lifeless body of Hussein, and take everything you can from this body. Leave nothing left. Men would come and rip everything they could. A few hours ago, Imam had ripped his shirt from every part, put holes in his shirt so that his body would have some sort of kafan left. But the Mal'oon came and left his body already on. They left nothing left on his body. One person came and took that ripped shirt. One person came and took the pants he was wearing. One person came and took the belt he was wearing. Another Mal'oon came and saw the ring of the Imam. As he tried to pull it off, the ring was stuck and he couldn't get it off. So he took his dagger out from his pocket and began cutting the finger of the Imam so he could take his whole finger along with the ring. Ajrukum ala Allah. Once Hussein's body had been fully looted and he was left there, Umar ibn Sa'd gives in his next order. He says, now take the bodies of these people one by one, line them up and take the horses and trample these bodies over and over and over again. The Mal'oon, these cursed people, these soldiers took all the bodies of the shuhada, they placed them in a line one by one. As they were about to move, one by one, members of different tribes stepped forward and protested. First, somebody from the tribe of Hur came forward and he said, Yabna Sa'ad, if somebody tramples the body of a member of our tribe, if somebody tramples Hur, then our tribe will go to war with you. So they came and took the body of Hur away. Somebody from Banu Asad came and said, you cannot trample the body of Habib. If you do, we go to war with you. They pull away the body of Habib. Someone comes who's from the tribe of Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. They take his body away. Someone else comes from the tribe of Ali al-Akbar. They take his body. Someone else takes the body of Abbas. One by one, the bodies are taken away. They say, you cannot trample our tribesmen. At the end, they said there was only one body that was left in that line among all the 72 companions, of all the 72 ones who had given their lives. They said that there was nobody left to claim the body of Ibn Zahra. There was nobody there to take away the body of Ibn Ali. of the grandson of the Holy Prophet. He was the one left all by himself. Umar ibn Sa'd gave his order. 10 horsemen came next to the body and began riding back and forth over the body of Hussein. Over and over again, trampling, destroying the Imam's body, breaking every single bone in his body. Mu'mineen, when you perform your latam and your matam, let your heart remember that Hussein's body was trampled. Whatever you do to yourself will be nothing compared to what had happened to the body of Hussein. Ajrakum ala Allah. Now, this second order has been finished. Umar ibn Sa'd gives his third order. He says, now that this has been done, look towards these tents of the women, go inside and take anything that you want, harass these women. The men begin coming from all sides. They take their spears, they attack the women from outside the tents and begin stabbing some of the women, attacking them. They're pulling away some of their outside clothing, their chadors, their maqani'. The ladies are beginning to run from side to side, trying to seek protection, but there's nobody left to protect them. There's no Abbas anymore, there's no Akbar anymore, they're by themselves, just the women and children. Now another issue, another hukum is ordered by Umar ibn Sa'd. He says, now set fire to the tents with the women still inside. As the tents begin burning, Zainab begins taking all the children and placing them outside. She grabs all the women, gathering them and putting them outside, protecting them from there. But Zainab remembers there's one person, my Imam is still there and I have to go save my Imam. She goes into the tent of the Imam of Abd Bimar. She goes inside and brings our Imam outside from the tent. But when she comes, she remembers, Zainab knows that this is my Imam. I can't do anything without his ijazah. I have to get his idhn. I have to get his permission. She asks him, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, Ya Imam, should we stay in this tent? Should we burn? Should we burn alive or do we leave? What do we do? You're my Imam, give us the order. Imagine my madloom Imam, our madloom Imam. The first issue, the first hukum, the first fatwa he has to give is Zainab, we have to go outside. Zainab, the first time you're going to be violated and the eyes of men will fall upon you, I have to give you this order. Ajrukum ala Allah. Zainab, saving our lives is wajib, we have to go outside. They say, up until this night, before they were crying, Wa Husayna, Wa Madluma, Wa Husayna, Wa Muhammada. And they say now, the women began crying, Wa Hijaba, Wa Hijaba. Ajrukum ala Allah. One of the witnesses at Karbala says that I saw a lady without her full clothing on, without full hijab that she was deserving of, was running in and out of these burning tents over and over again. It's as if she was looking for something inside, and then I saw her dragging a young man outside by herself. This was Zainab saving imamat for us. This was Zainab saving the message of Islam. Zainab now was our acting and living imam while she was saving this imama. Now, Shimr comes forward and looks to Ruqayya, the imanat of Imam Hussein. Hussein's amanat is there. Shimr takes his hand and begins slapping Ruqayya over and slaps Ruqayya with the utmost of hatred in his heart. Another person comes, sees the earrings of Ruqayya, of Sakina, of our Sukaina, and begins pulling it from her ears. You mal'oon, if you just ask her, she'll give it to you. He pulls it from her ears, right off of her ears, and her ears begin bleeding. Ajrukum ala Allah. There's a witness at Karbala says that I saw a young girl running away from the camps, and what had happened was this young girl, I saw blood trickling from her ears, and I saw that her body, her clothes were on fire. You see, these mal'oon didn't just burn the tents, they had been burning the women there as well. Someone had set fire to the clothes of Ruqayya. As Ruqayya ran out, she was looking for help, and a sheikh who was far away, some old man was near the river Furat. He saw that a young girl a 4-year-old girl was there. He grabbed Sukaina, he grabbed Ruqayya and began putting out the fire. Listen to the jawab that Ruqayya gives. She says to this old man, says, Ya Shaykh, don't put your hands on me. Don't you know I'm from Ahlul Bayt? You can't put your hands on me. He says, young girl, I just want to put the fire out, that's it. I don't want to disrespect you. So Ruqayya hasn't seen somebody with compassion in their hearts for over 10 days. She collects her thoughts and realizes that this is a person who's kind. He says, Ya Shaykh, it seems like you have some mercy in your heart. Will you do me one favor? He says, yes, little girl, what can I do for you? What do you want from me? She says, can you show me how to get to Najaf? Can you show me the way to Najaf? It's like, little girl, do you know how far Najaf is? What do you want to do in Najaf? He says, don't you know my Jadd is there? My grandfather's in Najaf. I want to go. I have to tell my Jadda, my Jaddi, that they've killed my Baba. That they've taken my brother Asghar from me. They've taken my Ammu Abbas. They've taken my aunt's chador, her makna from her. I want to go complain to my grandfather. See what they've done to us, the family of Rasulullah. Ajrakum ala Allah. Zainab and Kulthum are gathering all the women and children. Suddenly, after they begin to get the head count, they realize the amanat of Hussein is not with them. Somebody's missing, and they say, Aina Sukaina, Aina Ruqayya, where did the amanat of Hussein go? They run out into the desert to try to find Ruqayya, to see where she goes. When Zainab saw that there was a young man, a sheikh, taking his horse somewhere, she went and asked him, Ya sheikh, have you seen any little girl around here? Have you seen somebody running around, a young 4-year-old girl? And the sheikh says, no, I haven't seen anybody, but if you go in that direction over there, I heard something there. I went towards that river because my horse was thirsty, and I wanted to give my horse some water. But when we got there, we heard a girl crying so much, so loudly, that when my horse heard her screams, he refused to drink any sip of water from Furat. If you go in that direction, maybe you'll find this young little girl. Zainab begins to go forward. She sees this big hole in the sand of Karbala. She sees a body lying there, and she sees Ruqayya laying next to the feet of his body. She says, Ruqayya, Ruqayya, is this you? Sukina, Sukina, is this you? As she goes forward, she realizes that it's her. She says, Ya Ruqayya, whose body are you lying on? Whose body is this? What are you doing over here? Says, first she asked him, says, why aren't you sleeping on his chest? Says, is this Hussein? Is this your father? And she says, yes, na'am, this is my father. I'm sleeping with my father one last time. I came to fall asleep with him. She says, why aren't you sleeping on his chest? She says, Ammati, Zainab, this chest has been destroyed and trampled so bad that I couldn't find somewhere to put my head down, so I had to lay down next to his feet. This is the only place I could go. This body has no head, so I had no idea of identifying the body. So Zainab says, then how did you know this was your father? If there was no head here, there was no chest, how did you know this was your father Hussein? She replies and says, Ammati, when I came running out into Karbala calling out, Baba, Baba, Abata, Abata, I heard a voice from this body saying, Ilayya, Ilayya, Bunayya, Bunayya, Ruqayya, come sleep with your Baba one last time. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. Ya Allah, we ask you by the right of Muhammad and honor Muhammad to forgive all mu'mineen, mu'minat, muslimin, muslimat, all of our marhumin, marhumat. Ya Allah, by the right of the women of Ahlul Bayt, by the right of the children of Ahlul Bayt, by the right of Imam Sajjad, alayhi salam, by the right of Zainab, Kulthum, all those who had suffered and endured on this night, we ask you, give us tawfiq to give us that isma. Help us, give us the tawfiq to perfect ourselves, to have that taqwa, so that you protect us against sins that we are still committing in our lives, sins that are keeping us away from being connected to the Imam of the time. Allah, we ask you for this tawfiq to strengthen our identity, to give us that isma, that identity, so that when the Imam returns, we can be among his closest companions and followers. Wa akhiru da'wan and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.